Okay, so you guys were asked to find a sequence of transformations that's going to get this shape, A, B, C, D, onto Q, R, S, T. Now, I'm going to share a couple that I saw that people posted about. So I had one student bring A up 2 units, so now A and Q are kind of on the same horizontal line, and then they took the midpoint in between, somewhere around here, and reflected it over that line. So we just reflected it, so essentially A landed on Q like this, and then thought, well, perfect, let's rotate at A down until they line up, which is awesome. We had another student actually take A and go right 10 and up 2 so that it ended right there, and then kind of reflected over a line that was more like this, so then that landed them right on top of each other. Okay, and the beautiful thing is there are so many different sequences of transformations that as long as you got the two shapes somehow, by using translation, rotation, and reflection to get them to land on top of the other, then you fulfilled what you were asked to do. And now the goal of this is to now think, okay, is there a way that we can come up with something that will work for any two shapes? So, going to the right 10 and up 2 and reflecting over this line, or translating up 2 and reflecting over a vertical line like this and then rotating, that will only works for these two specific shapes. Think if I moved QRST up here, we would have to come up with something new lines of reflection, and new degrees of rotation, new units to translate. So the goal is to come up with something that will work no matter what. And so here's the secret, and actually one of my students did this. Somebody did this. It was awesome. So if we translate A to Q, do you see how A and Q have the same markings? So they're the same angle. So if we translate A to Q, I don't give units. I just say, hey, take A to Q. No matter where this Q is along this grid, I know how to follow that. Well, perfect. A is on Q. Okay. Then if I rotate around this common point now until, maybe let's say D lands on T. So if I rotate until D lands on T, I don't give a degree, but I can follow that, right? And no matter where this is oriented, I know to stop when D reaches Q. So now I'm here. So do you see how that has landed me right there? So now all I'm going to have to do is reflect over this line that's the same between them. So we're going to reflect over that line, and ta-da, we have now landed the shape on top of the other one. So here's the ultimate trick. The way to get any two shapes to land on top of each other is to translate a point to a point. All right? So we're going to take some notes here. Move this over. Okay, so we're going to translate A to Q. Or we're going to go from point to point. All right? Now, we're going to rotate around A until a side matches up or another point lines up. So we're going to rotate. Make sure we give our center rotation. I think that's a big thing that a lot of us are forgetting. So rotate around A until, we're going to say, until AD lines up with QT. Okay, so that means rotate until the side matches. So now again, here we are. This is where we're at. And then, if we need to reflect, we can reflect over that line. Not all shapes will need to be reflected, and in that case, when you rotate, you'll line up exactly. So, we're going to go ahead and reflect over AD. Now, the trick is you could call this AD or QT. It doesn't matter. You could say rotate around Q. That's insignificant because at this point they're the same point, so it doesn't matter how you label it. So if we reflect, we've landed. So then essentially we're going to reflect over line that matched up. So this sequence right here will work for any set of shapes. And so what we can say here is that B landed on R, and C landed on S. So ABCD is congruent to QRST. Alright, so we can translate from a point to a point, then rotate around that point until a side matches, and then reflect over that line. So even if I move QRST to a different location on this grid, this will still work, and that's what we want to do. So you have the opportunity to practice this on 7.1. You're given two shapes, and you're going to want to translate a point to a point, then rotate around that point until a side matches up, and reflect if you need to over that line. Last little thing here, notice that A landed on Q and B landed on R and C on S and D on T. So I put them in the same order of the points that lined up. So we don't want to call this RQST because that would say that A landed on R, which didn't happen. So you need to make sure that when you put something in order, you're going to say these are the points that match up. Okay, so hopefully you can practice and get this down a little bit better on 7.1. All right.